A whiz kid with a very powerful idea.
This wire takes the energy from the air. Down below here, we turn it from AC into DC.
A 13-year-old prodigy has shaken the world with claims that CERN, the most powerful scientific machine on Earth, may have already ripped open a portal.
The same confined space, there is an infinite number of parallel realities with an infinite number of parallel dimensions that actually can create a powerful or a less powerful form of God equals MC squared as we know it.
His words have stunned Joe Rogan, left scientists uneasy, and forced the public to ask questions no one wants answered. What if experiments meant to unlock the secrets of the universe have instead opened a door we cannot close?
CERN just cranked the Large Hadron Collider up to a new record, smashing protons together with higher energy than ever before, and some wonder if these collisions could be bending reality itself.
The genius warns the danger is not coming. It may already be here. The genius kid who shook Joe Rogan. Max Laughlin is only 13 years old, yet he has already been described as one of the brightest young minds alive. People who have watched him explain his ideas often compare him to historical geniuses like Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein. The comparison is not about achievements in laboratories or published papers. It is about how he understands complex ideas at such a young age and explains them in a way that many adults find hard to match. Max's most unsettling belief is that science is moving into dangerous territory without realizing the full consequences. He often points to CERN, the world's largest particle physics laboratory in Switzerland, as the best example of this problem. Scientists there are smashing protons together at nearly the speed of light in an attempt to understand the origins of the universe. To Max, this is not simply ambitious science. It is reckless because no one can guarantee what side effects might come from experiments at that level of energy. What makes Max's voice unique is not only his age, but also his argument that children can sometimes see risks more clearly than adults. He says children are not yet conditioned by institutions. Adults who work inside the system learn to accept rules and limits, but a child can look at the same situation and immediately notice the danger. When a child identifies a blind spot in the work of the world's most advanced scientists, it feels unsettling. It forces people to ask why the experts did not see the same problem. Joe Rogan has built a reputation by inviting all kinds of guests into deep conversations. He has interviewed comedians, astronauts, conspiracy theorists, psychologists, and world-class scientists. He has heard countless bold claims. What shook him the most was not only the intelligence, but the seriousness. Max was not treating physics as an abstract game. He was treating it as a warning, a message that humanity is playing with forces it may not fully understand. CERN, the world's most dangerous experiment. Like we said, Max's biggest critique is concerning CERN. CERN is known worldwide as the home of the Large Hadron Collider, or LHC. The LHC is the biggest and most powerful particle accelerator in the world. It is built underground in the form of a giant circular tunnel that stretches for 27 kilometers. Inside this tunnel, scientists use powerful magnets to push beams of protons to nearly the speed of light. Protons are the tiny particles found inside the nucleus of atoms. Once the beams are moving fast enough, the machine makes them crash into each other. The purpose of these collisions is to copy what the universe looked like at its very beginning. Scientists believe that the universe began with an enormous explosion about 13.8 billion years ago. This event is called the Big Bang. In the first tiny fraction of a second after the Big Bang, everything was incredibly hot and dense. Particles were flying everywhere. and the basic building blocks of matter were being formed. By smashing protons together at extremely high speeds, the LHC recreates a small piece of those early conditions. Detectors around the ring record the results of each collision. Scientists study the data to understand what particles are created, how they behave, and what that tells us about the structure of the universe. In simple terms, the goal is to look deeper into the ingredients that make up everything we see around us. The scale of the machine is unlike anything else on Earth. To operate, the LHC must be kept colder than deep space. The reason is that the machine relies on superconducting magnets. These magnets guide and control the proton beams as they race around the tunnel. For a magnet to become superconducting, it must be cooled to an extremely low temperature so that electricity can flow through it with no resistance at all. If there were resistance, the magnets would lose power, heat up, and fail to keep the beams on track. Engineers use liquid helium to achieve this cooling. The temperature is lowered to -271 degrees Celsius, which is only 2 degrees above absolute zero, the coldest temperature that is physically possible. At this point, the magnets become superconductors and can handle the huge electrical currents needed to steer the protons. The detectors that capture the results of the collisions are also massive and complex. They weigh thousands of tons and are made from many layers of metals and silicon sensors. Each time the protons collide, the detectors record the trails of new particles that are created. Every second, trillions of interactions are measured and turned into data. That data is then shared with scientists all over the world for analysis. Max Laughlin points out that while the stated purpose of CERN is to study fundamental particles, the energy levels involved are far beyond anything humanity has ever controlled. This is why many people feel uneasy about what might happen. Scientific progress has often come with risks that were not fully understood at the time. When nuclear fission was first tested in the 1940s, there were genuine fears that it could ignite the atmosphere. Similar fears have surfaced with CERN. One concern raised in the early years of the LHC was the possibility of creating miniature black holes. Black holes are regions in space where gravity is so strong that nothing, not even light, can escape. Physicists reassured the public that if these miniature versions were ever produced, they would evaporate instantly. Yet the idea alone unsettled many. Max asks what would happen if even one did not vanish the way scientists expected. Another possible risk is something called a strangelet. A strangelet is a particle that has only been imagined in theory and has never been seen in real life. It would be made of a form of matter called strange matter. The fear is simple. If a strangelet were ever created, it could touch normal matter and change it into more strange matter, spreading like a chain reaction. That would not only mean rocks, soil, and air. It could also mean human bodies, breaking down our atoms and converting them into strange matter too. In the most extreme case, the reaction would not stop until the entire planet and everything on it had been turned into a heavy, lifeless sphere of strange matter. Scientists insist this is almost impossible, but the very idea has kept the public uneasy. Joe Rogan's perspective reflects this unease. He sees the LHC as humanity pushing itself into uncharted territory without a full understanding of the consequences. To him, it sounds like a gamble with the very structure of the universe. CERN continues to operate, expand, and even plan for larger future colliders. The ambition is remarkable, but the doubts remain. Each new experiment promises discovery, yet it also carries with it the possibility of unintended results. And this brings us to the rumor that has captured more attention than any other. The portal story that refuses to die. The rumor that CERN had opened a portal started on a satirical website where someone claimed that a secret experiment had ripped open a gateway to another world. The story was written as a joke, but once it was picked up by readers on the internet, it took on a life of its own. Within hours, YouTube channels began posting dramatic videos that recycled the same claim. They used stock footage of flashing lights, clips of the Large Hadron Collider, and deep, ominous voiceovers to make the story look convincing. Conspiracy blogs soon joined in, each repeating the claim in new words and adding their own wild theories. Some people even claimed to have seen strange lights in the skies near CERN. They described glowing colors and sudden flashes near access tunnels. None of these reports were backed up by evidence, but they added fuel to the fire. The more the story spread, the harder it became for ordinary people to separate fact from fiction. Search engines placed the original satirical link at the top of results for anyone typing in CERN portal, and many assumed the website was official. Max Laughlin pointed out that while there has never been a real report of a portal at CERN, the rumor caught fire for a simple reason. People already have a deep fear that scientists are playing with forces beyond their control. The idea of a portal might not have been true, but the anxiety behind it was real. People were afraid that something built on such a massive scale could lead to an accident no one could predict. History shows that these fears are not new. In the 1990s, scientists built the relativistic heavy ion collider in New York. This machine was designed to smash the nuclei of heavy atoms, such as gold, together at very high speeds. The goal was to recreate a form of matter called quark-gluon plasma, which is believed to have existed in the first moments of the universe. Some members of the public became terrified that such collisions could create a runaway reaction. They worried it might form a strange new kind of matter that could spread and swallow the Earth. Lawsuits were filed to try to block the collider before it could begin, and even though experts said the risk was tiny, the fear was powerful. People believed scientists might unleash something they could not control. The survival of the portal rumor has everything to do with what it represents. Portal has become a metaphor for the kinds of experiments humanity may not be ready for. And this is where Max pushes the discussion into even darker territory. Hidden dimensions, the terrifying possibility. Max Laughlin believes that one of the most overlooked dangers in modern physics is the idea of hidden dimensions. Everyone grows up understanding 3 dimensions of space: height, width, and depth. Time is added as a 4th dimension. That seems complete to most people, but modern theories in physics suggest there may be far more. String theory, which attempts to unify all the forces of nature, requires 10 or even 11 dimensions to make the mathematics work. Hidden dimensions mean that reality may have layers we cannot see. They would not appear as new directions we could walk in, like finding another hallway in a house. Instead, they would be curled up and compacted into tiny shapes that exist right alongside the dimensions we already know. These shapes are so small that even the best instruments cannot detect them. Scientists imagine them as extra spaces folded into the structure of the universe itself, attached to the 3 dimensions of height, width, and depth that we live in. They are always present at every point in space, but they remain invisible because of how tightly they are packed. If they are real, then our world is not complete with just the 4 dimensions we know. It would be part of a much larger structure that has been hidden from human eyes since the beginning of time. Max explains that these extra dimensions are not science fiction. They are taken seriously by many physicists, and experiments at CERN are designed to test whether they exist. If particles move into these dimensions, they would disappear from our detectors. leaving behind what scientists call miss-energy. Detectors at the Large Hadron Collider have been built to search for exactly this type of anomaly. No confirmed signs have been found yet, but Max points out that the very fact scientists are searching proves they believe the possibility is real enough to test. The frightening part comes when you ask, what happens if something more than a particle slips away? Max warns that smashing protons together at extreme energies could strain the barrier that separates our known dimensions from hidden ones. If that barrier breaks, even for a fraction of a second, two outcomes are possible. One is that the fabric of our universe could tear open into a vacuum bubble. That bubble could spread at the speed of light and erase everything in its path. The other is that particles or energy from another dimension could spill into ours. If that happened, they might not obey our physical laws. They could trigger violent nuclear-like reactions with ordinary matter or release bursts of radiation powerful enough to make whole regions of Earth uninhabitable. Joe Rogan reflects this fear when he considers the possibility of another world existing right next to ours without anyone knowing. He sees the unsettling idea that experiments might punch a hole into it without warning. To Rogan, it feels like science is digging tunnels in the dark without knowing what rooms they might enter. Max strengthens his point by using history. In the 1930s, physicists discovered antimatter, a form of matter that no one had even imagined before. It was a complete shock that every particle has a mirror partner with the opposite charge. The discovery was not only unexpected, but also frightening, because matter and antimatter destroy each other on contact, releasing massive amounts of energy. If something as powerful as antimatter could remain hidden until the 20th century, Max argues that hidden dimensions could be today's version of that shock. And if such dimensions exist, then reality itself may not be stable. Max drives this home by turning to one of the strangest and most unsettling experiments in quantum physics, one that shows reality can change simply by being observed. Reality breaks when you look at it. This is called the double-slit experiment. In this experiment, scientists fire very small particles, such as electrons or photons, at a screen that has two narrow openings. If no one is watching closely, the particles do not act like solid objects. Instead, they spread out like waves and create a pattern of light and dark bands on the other side. This wave pattern shows that each particle is behaving like a ripple of energy, passing through both openings at the same time. The result changes the moment the experiment is observed. When scientists measure which slit a particle goes through, the particle stops acting like a wave. It behaves like a tiny solid ball and chooses only one opening. The wave pattern disappears and is replaced by two clusters of particles, one behind each slit. This simple act of observing changes the entire outcome. Max explains that this is one of the most shocking discoveries in science. It means that reality at the smallest scale does not exist in a fixed state until it is observed. Before measurement, particles exist in a cloud of possibilities. Once observed, they appear to choose a single outcome. To Max, this is not just a curious detail of physics. It shows that reality itself reacts to being watched. The implication is deeply unsettling. If the universe changes based on observation, then it is not truly solid or stable. It behaves more like a system that reacts to input, almost like a code running inside a simulation. Max warns that this becomes more worrying when applied to CERN. The detectors at CERN are some of the most powerful observational tools ever built. They do not simply record data. They examine the smallest fragments of the universe in ways no human technology has ever done before. If small-scale reality bends under observation, then CERN may already be bending it on a massive scale without realizing it. Joe Rogan reflects on this with discomfort. The idea that reality itself can glitch, depending on whether or not someone is looking, is almost impossible to process. He wonders what happens when thousands of detectors are aimed at collisions that release more energy than anything on Earth. If one simple experiment in a lab can make reality shift, what could happen when the largest machine in the world stares directly at the building blocks of the universe? Some scientists have gone further and raised the controversial idea of observer-created reality. They ask whether the universe itself is conscious in some way of being measured. Max does not claim this directly, but he uses the debate to show how far science has pushed into areas that border on the unthinkable. The horror for Max is not what we already see, but what we might be missing. If observation changes outcomes, then CERN's constant measuring might already be shaping events in ways we do not notice. Every collision that is tracked could be altering reality itself, not just recording it. And if reality can bend this easily, Max says the danger grows when you consider the parts of the universe that are already invisible. That is where he takes the discussion next, into the shadow world of dark matter. The dark universe surrounding us. Scientists estimate that more than 85% of the cosmos is made of something called dark matter. Unlike normal matter, it cannot be seen, touched, or measured directly. We only know it is there because of the way its gravity bends and shapes galaxies. Without dark matter, stars at the edges of galaxies would fly apart. Entire cosmic structures would not hold together. Dark matter acts like an invisible framework that holds the universe in place. What makes it terrifying is that no one knows what dark matter actually is. It could be an undiscovered type of particle. It could exist as strange waves spread throughout space. It could even be something completely outside of human comprehension, unlike anything in our current physics textbooks. Scientists admit openly that they are still blind to what makes up most of the universe. Max stresses that this means we live inside a minority world. Everything we see, touch, and build with is only a small fraction of what truly exists. Efforts to study dark matter are massive. CERN searches for clues during high-energy collisions, hoping new particles might appear. At the same time, deep underground laboratories like Xenon 1T in Italy and Lux Zeppelin in the United States use huge tanks filled with liquid xenon or argon. They are designed to catch even a single collision between dark matter and ordinary atoms. So far, they have found nothing. The silence only deepens the mystery. It also increases the fear that dark matter may not be just invisible matter, but something far stranger. Max pushes this further. He warns that dark matter could represent an entire hidden universe pressing against our own. If this is true, then what we see with our eyes is only a thin surface of reality. Beneath it could lie a vast shadow world that is already influencing us through gravity. The idea that we are surrounded by something so dominant and yet so unknown makes the portal rumors seem small in comparison. Joe Rogan reacts to this with shock. To him, the thought that human beings live in a minority universe is horrifying. He finds it almost unbearable to imagine that we do not even understand the substance that makes up most of existence. It means that everything familiar to us might be just a corner of a much larger and more dangerous reality. History makes Max's warning more serious. Every time humanity has discovered a hidden world, it has changed everything. The discovery of bacteria explained disease and reshaped medicine. The discovery of radiation opened the path to nuclear power and nuclear weapons. The discovery of antimatter revealed that even the smallest particle has a destructive opposite. Dark matter could be the most dangerous hidden world yet. But Max insists the real danger does not come from what scientists are searching for. The real threat may come from what they have already triggered without realizing it. The child's darkest warning. Max Laughlin's most unsettling claim is that the true danger from CERN may not lie in the future at all. He argues that it may already have happened. Scientists are colliding particles at energy levels that humanity has never controlled before. While they calculate probabilities and build safety arguments, Max points out that no one can predict every possible outcome of such collisions. The universe is too complex, and our knowledge is too limited for anyone to be sure. He explains that CERN produces billions of particle collisions every second. Most of them appear to behave in ways scientists expect, but Max says there is no guarantee that subtle anomalies are not being missed. A tiny distortion in data could signal something much larger. For example, energy could vanish into a hidden dimension without leaving a trace we can recognize. There could also be microportals that open for less than a billionth of a second and collapse before detectors even register them. The fact that nothing unusual has been confirmed does not mean nothing has happened. It only means we may not be able to see it. In his view, this is the most dangerous possibility, because humanity could be altering reality without realizing it. If such a portal has already opened, even briefly, the implications are disturbing. Small changes in the laws of physics could ripple outward, creating effects that seem random, but are actually signs of deeper instability. Natural constants such as the speed of light or the strength of gravity might shift ever so slightly over time. If this happened, GPS satellites could begin to fail because their systems depend on fixed values of time and light speed. Electronics might malfunction without explanation as the rules of energy flow slowly changed. Even DNA could begin mutating in unusual ways if the forces that hold atoms together were altered. Life would not notice at first, but over time the shifts could disrupt technology, climate, and biology itself. There is also the possibility that something from another dimension could already have entered ours. Even if it were invisible, it might interact with matter in ways we do not yet understand, slowly altering the balance of our world without detection. Max also points to controversial theories that have been debated at the edges of physics. One of the most frightening is the idea of vacuum decay. The vacuum state refers to the lowest possible energy level of space itself. If CERN were to disturb this state, it could create a chain reaction that changes the structure of reality. In the most extreme version of the theory, this reaction would spread at the speed of light and erase everything in its path, leaving behind nothing but a new, lower energy universe. Mainstream scientists dismiss this scenario as almost impossible, but Max warns that the history of science is filled with ideas once thought impossible that later turned out to be real. And this leads to the final and most haunting question. If even the scientists leading these experiments admit that much of physics is unknown, then what dark truths are still hidden in the universe waiting to be revealed?